February the 1st, 1959, 9 people walked into the heart of the Soviet Union's Ural mountain range. They were not beginners or lost tourists. They were among the most experienced winter hikers in the entire country. These were people who had trained for years and knew exactly how to survive. They never came back. And the things that were found on that mountain have never been explained. This is their story. Every detail is real. The group was led by Igor Dyatlov, 23 years old, an engineering student and one of the most gifted expedition leaders of his generation. With him, 8 others. 7 men and 2 women, all experienced, all trained, and all trusted. They had one goal: reach the summit of Otorten. This was a Grade 3 expedition, the highest difficulty classification in Soviet mountaineering. They set off on January 25th into the freezing wilderness. For the first few days, everything was fine. Their diaries were cheerful. Their photographs show smiling faces, completely unaware of the fate awaiting them. Then, on the night of February the 1st, something happened. Something so terrifying that 9 rational human beings made a decision that sealed their fates. They slashed open their own tent from the inside and ran out into the darkness. Into -40-degree cold, barefoot, in their underwear. They never came back. But here is what the Soviet investigators could not understand. It wasn't just that they ran. It was what they left behind. And it was what was done to them after. Mysterious injuries that defied logic. Stay with me as we uncover the mystery of Dyatlov Pass. For 25 days, nothing, no contact, no signal, no return. It was only when the group failed to check in and family members raised the alarm that a search team was finally sent. What they found at the campsite stopped them cold. The tent was still standing. Their food was still inside, their shoes, their coats, their equipment, all of it, left behind. Something had forced 9 experienced hikers to abandon every single thing that could keep them alive and flee into the dark. The investigators followed a trail of footprints in the snow. 9 sets, walking at first, then running. They led down the slope, into the forest. And then the footprints simply stopped. The first 2 bodies were found near the tree line. Igor Dyatlov and Zineta Kolmogorova. Both were face up in the snow, arms outstretched, as if they had been trying to crawl back to the tent. Cause of death: hypothermia. That was the clean answer, the explainable answer. But then they found the others. Rustem Slobodin, found nearby. Hypothermia, but with a fractured skull. A fracture so deep the examiners noted it should have rendered him unconscious. And yet his footprints in the snow showed he had walked consciously, deliberately, for over a kilometer after receiving that injury. How? Then, the cedar tree. Under a large cedar tree at the forest's edge, they found 2 more bodies. Yuri Doroshenko and Yuri Krivonishenko. Both had burned their fingers to the bone. They had been so desperate for warmth that they had thrust their hands directly into a fire. There were broken branches 15 feet up the tree. They had climbed it, in the dark, in 40 degrees, to look at something in the sky above their camp. And then, the final 4. Found buried under 4 meters of snow in a ravine. And this is where the story stops being explainable. The final 4 victims told a different story entirely: Ludmila Dubinina, Semyon Zolotarev, Alexander Kolevatov, Nikolai Thibault-Bridnolo. Their injuries were not consistent with a fall. They were not consistent with an avalanche. The medical examiner's report stated that the force required to cause these injuries was comparable to that of a car crash. Thibault-Bridnolo had a fractured skull so severe that pieces of bone had been pushed into his brain. Dubinina and Zolotarev had multiple broken ribs, crushed inward on both sides simultaneously, as if something had squeezed them from both sides at once. And yet, not one of the 4 had a single bruise on their skin. No cuts, no abrasions, no external marks at all. Whatever crushed their bones from the inside left no trace on the outside. And then there was Dubinina's face. Her tongue was gone, removed from the root. Her eyes gone. No tool marks, no animal bites, no explanation. The investigators wrote in their report that they had never seen anything like it. And then the toxicology results came back. The clothing of 3 victims tested positive for radioactive contamination. The Soviet government immediately classified every document related to the case. The files were sealed for 30 years. When they were finally opened, 3 folders were missing. I've shown you what was found. Now I'm going to show you the 6 theories, and tell you which one I believe is true. And one of them is worse than all the others. Over 67 years, investigators, scientists, and journalists have put forward dozens of explanations. I am going to give you the 6 most credible ones. Starting with the least disturbing. Theory 1. Avalanche. The most accepted scientific explanation. A slab of snow shifted and struck the tent, causing the group to flee. The crushing injuries were caused by the weight of snow. It is the official explanation as of 2021. There is one problem. The tent was found still standing. The snow around the tent showed no avalanche pattern. And experienced Soviet avalanche experts at the time said explicitly, this was not an avalanche site. Theory 2. Infrasound. The particular shape of Dead Mountain may create infrasound waves, frequencies below human hearing that cause extreme psychological effects. Panic, paranoia, the overwhelming urge to flee. It would explain why they ran. It does not explain the injuries. Theory 3. A military weapons test. In 2025, new analysis pointed to a classified Soviet rocket test in the region that night. The radiation, the orange lights, the crushing injuries consistent with a shockwave, and the missing files? Classified, buried, because the Soviet government could not admit what their own weapons had done to their own people. Theory 4. The Mansi people. The indigenous Mansi considered this mountain sacred, forbidden. Some investigators suggested the hikers had unknowingly violated a sacred site and were warned away by a group who enforced that boundary. Theory 5. Something unknown. The orange lights seen that night were reported by multiple independent witnesses across the region. Theory 6 is the one that keeps me up at night. What if they were not running away from something? What if they were being escorted? The footprints in the snow were described by investigators as walking, orderly, in a line, not panicked. 9 people. Walking in a line, away from their tent, into the dark, together, as if they had been told to. The Dyatlov Pass case was officially reopened by Russian authorities in 2019. After 2 years, they announced their conclusion: an avalanche. Most experts disagreed. The families of the 9 hikers disagreed, and the 3 missing folders have never been found. I believe something happened on that mountain that the Soviet government understood clearly enough to classify. I believe the injuries, the crushed bones, the missing organs, the radiation point to a single catastrophic event. Controlled, deliberate, covered up. But here's the thing. After 67 years of investigation, the official conclusion is still an unknown compelling force. They never gave it a better answer than that. Which means either they couldn't, or they wouldn't. My name is Dust and Thrones. There are stories in history that are darker than anything you have ever been told. I'll see you in the next one.